where it's
wait,
like a
wait. Are you talking? You're talking about the Amazonian tribe of old, the female Amazonian tribe? Or is that what
like
you mean?
matriarchies? I'm pretty sure that they built houses without men.
Matriarchies have never existed ever.
Yes, because like being transgender or like gender identity would be a protected class.
Right. Under your categorization, but you don't think that there should be any prosecutorial or any type of law that protects people who want to go by a nickname who are cisgender.
You can still go by a nickname. You can't put it on your like on your name tag or whatever, and they don't have to call you that now.
They don't have to call you, and you don't think they should.
I mean, it would be cool if they did, but I don't really care if they don't.
Right. Okay. You only care. You only care if
like,
they call you Jim instead of Jane.
Definitely, Jim is
right.
Is one of those.
And so, why do you think that you have that case that you can make?
Because it's like a protected class.
Okay. Why do you think? Again, what we're talking about is why you think it should be a protected class when cisgenders don't have the same protection by your own.
Because I think that like gender identity is like innate. So like if you have somebody whose gender identity, I don't have to prove it.
Yes, you do have to prove
it. You can just look at the law. There you go.
You think that the law proves that gender is innate?
Well, I mean, I don't think that they would make gender a protected class if it was just, like hogwash.
Oh, you don't?
That's just my opinion. Yeah.
Oh, so what about transracialism? Should that be a protected class?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't think transracialism exists.
You don't think transracialism exists? What about transspeciesism?
Only in the transracialism, to clarify, like transracialism is like a term specifically for people that are adopted like of another race. So like if you're like a white couple and you adopt like a black baby, that baby would be considered like quote unquote transracial because its adoptive family is a different race. But in the context of like somebody transitioning from like a white person to like a black person, I don't think that exists now. And I don't think transspeciesism exists either.
And why do you think that it is that you cannot transition your race as a construct of your mind, but you can do this with sex? Because you claim that this is innate, but you still haven't proven to me that gender is innate. Nor has anybody else ever proven that gender is innate, because you claim that it's environmental in circumstance. So how could it be innate?
I kind of already talked about like the racial aspect. I don't know why we keep like dragging back to race, but because like race is heritable in the way that like biological sex and or gender is not.
Wait, what? Say that one more time. You're saying that race is innate and gender is not?
No, I said that I don't know why we keep getting drugged back to like the race aspect, but like
transracialism is a thing.
If you consider Rachel Dolezal all black, like that's kind of your own beef. But like transracialism does exist in the context if you're like a black couple that adopts like a white kid, that is like a transracial child because they're in like a transracial household. But like the idea that I could like transition into a black man or whatever, I don't think that's true. Because like race is heritable, like race and ethnicity are heritable in a way that like gender identity or like biological sex is not.
So white's not just a social construction.
We've already like done this.
Well, no, you see, what's happening is your logic is circular. And so it's important that we continue to
You're the one that circled back
to prove that. What's that?
You're the one that circled back.
Yes, I brought the logic back to where it started.
No, we already moved off the
when it becomes circular. So one more time with the, because what's happening right now is cognitive dissonance. Okay. You're saying to me that gender, you say that gender is an innate characteristic and therefore should be a protected class, but you haven't been able to demonstrate how it's innate. In fact, by your own logic and reasoning, you claim that gender is environmental.
I think it depends, because I think it can be environmental for some people. The reason that I would say that like gender identity is innate is that we have people that demonstrate like this quality that is pervasive through biological sex and upbringing to be like, I identify as, or like I feel that I am of like a different gender, or like or should be of like a different sex. I think the pervasiveness of that, like through, like upbringing, circumstance, like across like history, across geographic location, across culture, that these people like persistently exist, I would say is like a pretty good indicator that it's just kind of like, pretty innate and pretty something that is just how it be,
No, it's not just how it be. And it makes no sense. You can't claim that if two people were raised in a different environment, they may have a claim to gender in a different way and then say it's innate. If you're born black, it doesn't matter what environment you're born in, you're still black. That would be innate.
Well, because gender identity and like gender itself are two different things, right? So like gender identity would be innate. Gender would be like the roles and the behaviors that are associated with that of a biological sex. So people have like an internal sense of like the identity of which they ascribe to their gender.
So you're claiming then that if people are raised in two different environments, their gender identity may not be different?
It can be. So like if you take, for example, like think of like an MTF trans person now.
Then it's not innate.
Well, it can be. So like
It
allow me.
can't be.
Okay.
Go
cool.
ahead.
You got
Go
me.
ahead.
No, it's
go
cool.
ahead, man.
No, don't worry about it. You crushed me on that one too. What's the next thing you want to talk about?
I mean, I did, because you can't prove it's
Totally.
innate.
I feel definitely blown out.
Well, show me how it's innate.
No, it's okay. We can move on to something else. That's totally fine. You wanted to talk about transmedicalism too, right?
Yeah, let's talk about transmedicalism.
Sure.
Getting into transmedicalism, let me just make sure that I have this completely straight.
Mm-hmm.
That your belief is that you can without any diagnosis of gender dysphoria, which you and I am sure can agree is a mental illness, that you should be able to still claim. You don't think so?
I think that gender dysphoria itself is like a mental distress or a condition, but I don't think like being transgender itself is a mental condition.
That's not what I said. So just to make sure, I'll clarify this as specifically as I possibly can.
Thank you. My lady brain is really slow, so I really appreciate
you and I can agree that gender dysphoria is a mental illness. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha on that one. Cool.
Okay, good. So if we can agree that that's true, your official position is that without a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, that you can still be transgender, even without having a professional make the claim that you're suffering from this mental illness. Is that right?
Yeah, you can still be trans without a diagnosis of gender dysphoria.
And so that becomes personal identity and self-diagnosis, yes?
No, because I think the gender dysphoria and being transgender are two separate things.
You do? I thought that it was innate.
No, so gender dysphoria is the feeling of like unease or discomfort that typically accompanies transgender people when they feel incongruent between their assigned sex and their identified sex. But that's like not exclusive to trans people, and not all trans people will like experience that discomfort. So like you can be trans and not be uncomfortable. Like you can be a person that identifies as a different gender or have this incongruence, but not be uncomfortable or suffer from dysphoria.
So, okay, so to get this right, one more time, that would actually provide evidence that this is not an innate phenomenon. Yes?
No.
How does that not provide evidence against your position that this is innate?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
How in the world could you possibly make that statement that you just made, that you can literally just decide tomorrow that you're a woman, okay? Or you can be diagnosed with having gender dysphoria as a mental illness, and you separate the two, right? One would be literally have to rely on environment. How could this possibly be an innate characteristic?
Well, because like I said, like gender identity, I think is innate. And so the idea of like gender dysphoria is like a discomfort when your gender identity doesn't match up with your assigned sex at birth. But not everybody is uncomfortable about that. Not everybody has like a discomfort or dysphoria around that incongruence.
Okay, but that still doesn't really answer the question. It answers why you separate the two, but it doesn't really reconcile how you can believe that it's an innate characteristic.
Because I think that like gender identity, like so like again, like gender is just like these roles, these behaviors, these predilections that are usually ascribed to either men or women. I think that people have like an internal sense of where they're supposed to be on like quote unquote, like not to be like, like the gender spectrum, right? Like what we would consider to be like masculine behavior and feminine behavior, or like what behaviors and predilections are associated with women and associated with men. People have like an internal sense of where they should be. I think that is innate. I think that concept is.
Can you learn masculine behaviors from your father?
I think that it goes beyond like behavior. It's like predilections. It's just like how you feel yourself to be, like where you fall.
Can you learn masculine behaviors from your father? I
mean, hypothetically, you could, sure.
You mean hypothetically? Would you consider building a house to be masculine or feminine?
I would consider that to be neutral, because everybody needs a house to live in.
Neutral. What about the drive to build the house? Would that be considered?
I would consider that neutral as well, because a woman that is naked and cold in the jungle wants to build a house just as bad as a man does.
But who would you say builds more houses?
God, I don't know. I think it depends on where you look. I mean, I would say that the Amazonian women probably built more houses than men, but that's just a guess.
You think that in the Amazon rainforest, women build more houses than men?
The Amazonians, like Amazonians.
Whatever, Amazonians.
Where like
wait, are you talking? You're talking about the Amazonian tribe of old, the female Amazonian tribe? Is that what
like
you mean?
Matriarchies? I'm pretty sure that they built houses without men.
Matriarchies have never existed ever.
That's like a whole other conversation, my dude. What was the point that you were going to make?
That aside, who right now builds the most houses? Would you say?
Right now, I don't know how many women are in construction, so I don't know.
You don't know that men build far more houses than women. Really? You don't think that that's just slightly disingenuous to pretend that you don't know that?
No, I feel like construction is leveled out pretty hard.
Everybody who hears this isn't going to know that you knew that men build more houses than women.
No, I think that like people want to be housed. I don't think that's like a gender specific behavior.
I didn't ask that. I asked you who builds more houses, men or women.
Well, and then you asked me like who wants to build the house.
So
like,
answer
where
the
does
question,
the drive come
who
from?
builds more houses?
I would say half. We'll say half. How's that?
You think that it's a 50-50 split, that
Maybe.
men and women build an equal number of houses?
I don't know. I've never looked into the construction.
What about fixing cars? Would you say that that's a 50-50 split?
Probably. There's a lot more women that do like mechanic stuff now than ever before. Yeah.
Okay. What about running electrical lines?
Yeah, I'd probably say 50-50 too. Women also love electricity. How can you put on your makeup without good lighting? You got to know how to wire an outlet or whatever the fuck that is. Yeah.
What about, I don't know, truck driving?
God, you know, that's actually a hard one because I know that women can't drive. So that one's pretty difficult. So maybe I'll say men on that one.
Yeah, you don't know. So why would you say, let's just say hypothetically, even though, of course, everybody on planet Earth knows this. Everybody, including you,
everyone, literally everyone. That's true.
You know who builds more houses,
innate.
You know who fixes more cars. You know all these things. Why do you think if those aren't masculine qualities that drive them to do it, why do you think that that there would be such an overage of men doing certain things and women doing other things?
Well, I think, again, this comes down to the idea that we think that these behaviors are like biologically driven, and they're not. Like up until, you know, like however many years ago, women couldn't even like have a fucking bank account. Like I think a lot of it has to do a lot more with social prescriptions than it does like biological determination.
And in hunter-gatherer societies, do you think that the men did most of the hunting because it came down to the fact that women couldn't have bank accounts and things like that?